Woman feed a little stray puppy every day. What happened next shocked everyone. In a quiet, snow-covered village tucked between mountains and forest, lived Margaret, a gentle woman in her early 60s. She had recently moved to the town after years of heartbreak, losing her husband to illness and never having children of her own. She lived alone in a small wooden cottage, far from the city noise, hoping for peace and silence. The community was tight-knit, but Margaret kept mostly to herself, her days quiet and simple. A walk to the market, some gardening, and evening tea by the fire. One cold afternoon, Margaret trudged back home with a basket of vegetables. The wind stung her cheeks and snowflakes settled on her coat. She didn't notice the little shadow behind her. A thin, trembling puppy, no more than a few weeks old, dragging one paw and limping along. He had been abandoned near the market, too weak to bark, too young to survive alone. As Margaret reached her doorstep and turned the key, she heard a faint whimper. There he was, sitting in the snow, eyes wide, tail wagging slowly. Startled, Margaret waved him off. "Shoo, go back," she said firmly. Her heart had built walls over the years. She didn't want to care, but the puppy didn't move. He simply sat and wagged. The next morning, she found him sleeping near her doorstep. Day after day, no matter how many times she waved or scolded, the little puppy always returned. He never barked, never demanded, just waited. One chilly evening, as she stirred a pot of stew, she saw the puppy sitting quietly outside her window. With a sigh, she scooped a small bowl, stepped outside, and placed it in front of him. His eyes lit up, and he ate gently, glancing at her between every few bites. From that day forward, it became a routine. After cooking, Margaret would set a small portion aside. The puppy would wag his tail, eat, and curl up near her doorstep. She began calling him Frosty. One morning, while sweeping snow from her front steps, Margaret heard an unusual crashing through the trees. Her eyes darted up and froze. A giant, angry bear, likely pushed closer to town by hunger and cold, was charging straight toward her. Panic seized her chest. She screamed, stumbled backward, and fell hard onto the ground. Her legs wouldn't move. The bear was just yards away. Then a flash of brown fur. Frosty. The little puppy hurled himself between Margaret and the bear, barking with a fury no one thought possible from such a small body. His growls pierced the silence. He didn't back down. He stood tall, loud, and fearless. The bear paused, startled by the sudden commotion and barking. It hesitated enough for the neighbors to notice. Hearing the barks, several neighbors ran out, some with sticks, others banging pans and shouting. Together, they chased the bear back into the forest. Margaret lay breathless, eyes locked on Frosty, who still stood guard, panting and shivering. One of the neighbors knelt beside her and said, "That little dog, he saved your life." In front of the whole crowd, Margaret sat up slowly and reached for Frosty. With trembling hands, she touched his head and smiled through tears. "You stayed. You protected me." The neighbors smiled, some wiping their eyes. Frosty wagged his tail, nuzzling into her arms. From that day on, Margaret was never seen alone again. She had found what she never thought she would: a protector, a friend, a family in the most unexpected form. Sometimes, the love we need the most doesn't come loudly. It sits quietly outside our door, waiting to be fed. Kindness is never wasted, and the smallest soul can have the biggest heart.